Hello, I'm Peaceful Nick the Medium. Welcome to today's episode, Near Death Experiences, the Soul Twin Stars podcast, July 11th, will be featuring Dr. Eben Alexander. My co host, Lady Shadow, and I, who many of you are familiar with, just interviewed the amazing Dr. Eben Alexander, and that podcast will be released Friday, July 11th at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. A little bit about Dr. Alexander is he was an academic neurosurgeon for over 25 years, including 15 years at the Brigham and Women's Children's Hospital and Harvard Medical School in Boston. Sorry about that. I apparently I can't read. Let me start over. Dr. Eben Alexander was an academic neurosurgeon for over 25 years, including 15 years at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, Children's Hospital, and Harvard Medical School in Boston. He was once staunchly committed to the materialist world view, the belief that the physical world is all that exists. His scientific belief system was altered by a 2008 transcendental near-death experience, or NDE, in which a bacterial infection severely damaged his brain as he fell into a week-long coma, during which he experienced an odyssey into another realm. Despite a bleak medical prognosis, Dr. Alexander awoke to make an inexplicable return to full health. In September 2018, the severity of Dr. Alexander's medical case and the shocking nature of his complete recovery were validated in the peer-reviewed Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease by physicians uninvolved in his 2008 care. His story was also featured in a series of peer-reviewed medical articles about near-death experiences in Missouri Medicine 2015, now published as the book, The Science of Near-Death Experiences. It concludes with the chapter, Near-Death Experiences, the Mind-Body Debate, and the Nature of Reality. So hello, those of you who are joining, please say hello. Since his NDE, Dr. Alexander has been reconciling his rich spiritual experience with quantum physics, cosmology, and the philosophy of mind. The leading-edge scientific study of consciousness posits that consciousness is primordial and the physical brain is its filter. Dr. Alexander speaks around the world to educate about the role that consciousness plays in wellness and recovery. Citing the mounting wealth of scientific data on spontaneous remissions in which thousands of patients have made startling recoveries despite supposed terminal medical conditions. His teachings include the vital practice of achieving expanded states of awareness through differential frequency audio recordings or centering prayer to fully express our higher soul's free will, including extraordinary healing. So, again, for those of you just joining, Lady Shadow and I interviewed the amazing Dr. Eben Alexander the other day, and we are releasing that podcast on July 11th, and it is an incredible conversation. And those of you who are familiar with me know I am always on a quest to prove that science proves mediumship is real. And there's a bunch of scientific discussion about how science is validating these types of experiences. Near-death experiences, mediumship, psychic, all kinds of metaphysical things we talk about in the podcast. So, a pioneering scientist and modern thought leader, Dr. Alexander has been named to the prestigious Watkins Mind Body Spirit list of the 100 most spiritually influential living people, alongside the Dalai Lama, Pope Francis, Eckhart Tolle, and Oprah Winfrey, a list on which he has appeared numerous times since 2013. Dr. Alexander has been featured in more than 400 media interviews, including Good Morning America, 2020, Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, Larry King, Fox and Friends, Discovery Channel, Biography Channel, and numerous podcast radio shows, etc., including the Soul Twin Stars podcast being released this Friday, July 11th. Dr. Alexander's books are available in more than 40 countries and have been translated in nearly as many languages. His most recent book, Living in a Mindful Universe, A Neurosurgeon's Journey into the Heart of Consciousness, has garnered accolades from scientists around the world. His other book, Proof of Heaven, A Neurosurgeon's Journey into the Afterlife, and The Map of Heaven, How Science, Religion, and Ordinary People Are Proving the Afterlife, have collectively spent more than 2 years on the New York Times and international bestseller lists. The 10th anniversary of Proof of Heaven features a new section with answers to frequently asked questions. So, anybody here have any questions? Hello, Vivian. Hi, Cosmic 80s. Hello, hello. Come on in and say hello. A graduate of UNC Chapel Hill, Dr. Alexander received his medical degree from Duke University School of Medicine in 1980. He taught neurosurgery at Harvard Medical School in Boston for 15 years and has performed over 4,000 neurosurgical operations. During his academic career, he authored or co-authored over 150 chapters and papers in peer-reviewed journals, authored or edited 5 books on radiosurgery and neurosurgery, and made over 230 presentations at conferences and medical centers around the world. Since his NDE, Dr. Alexander has dedicated himself to sharing information about near-death experiences and what they teach us about consciousness and the nature of reality. He continues to promote further research on the unifying elements of science and spirituality. You can find all of his information on ebenalexander.com. And the spelling is EBEN for Eben. So, yes, I'm very excited for the release of the podcast. It was an incredible conversation. If anybody has anyone they know that's had an NDE, please let me know in the comments. If you've had an NDE, let me know in the comments. The book is incredible. I actually bought this book a few years ago, and I had it on my bookshelf. And when I got in contact with Dr. Alexander, I thought, oh, I have that book. I've already read that book. So that was perfect, serendipitous moment. It's a beautiful book. And it was a pleasure and an honor to virtually meet him and interview him. So I'm very excited about that. All right. So what do we got going on? You know, I'm always on the quest to prove that science proves mediumship is real. Anybody who knows me knows I have science degrees and became a medium later in life. And I'm always trying to collect data in order to prove that this is actually happening, that mediums like myself are actually communicating with loved ones in spirit. No matter how many readings I do, no matter how much evidence I present to loved ones, you know, sometimes skeptics are skeptics, and sometimes people are skeptical just to be skeptical because they want to be skeptical. So if you're skeptical, let me know. Let me know in the comments down below. If you're watching the replay, if you're here watching the live, let me know. How do you feel about this stuff? How do you feel about NDEs? How do you feel about mediumship? All right. So what do we got? So Friday, we welcome Dr. Alexander, and we are very, very excited. You can find that on Spotify, Apple, iHeartMusic, YouTube. It will be posted on my social media and Lady Shadow's social media pages. So you will have no problem finding it. I have a Patreon post going up about it. I have put videos out on all my social media over the last couple of days. It's an incredible conversation, and all of our podcasts are incredible. This one's close to my heart just because of the nature of the scientific background of Dr. Alexander and his experience. And it really validates for me the research I've done on my own and the fact that I've been screaming this from the rooftops for a very, very long time, for many years, that science is proving this more and more every day. Hi, Kimmy Cat. Hello, hello. All right, so we talked about so many different things. During his illness, so he had bacterial meningitis, and his neocortex, which is part of the brain that is responsible for, dreams and hallucinations, it was completely shut down. But he had a very vivid, hyper real journey beyond the physical world. Sorry, it cut off. It didn't have enough room for all the letters. Um, and so when you have a skeptic that's a neurosurgeon, someone who's been working in science their entire lives, have an experience like this that changed their life in such a profound way, it's something that even the deepest skeptic should consider. Hey, maybe there's something to this. So that is my 2 cents on that. He also describes profound spiritual realms of pure consciousness, encountering divine beings, and receiving messages of unconditional love and unity from a woman that he encountered in this visit to the spirit world. He encountered this woman, and he found out that it was his sister that passed away 2 years earlier. He had been put up for adoption and didn't never met this sister in life, but met her in spirit. So that was kind of incredible as well. And again, the comments are cut off just because there's not enough room. So sorry about that. He also encountered timeless, spaceless awareness. So anybody who's ever had an NDE, most people state that there's no time in their NDEs. Like they might have been lost consciousness or brain activity for 5 or 10 minutes, but it feels like they were in spirit for a month or a year or 18 months. So the time is very different there. It's like, here's our timeline and a little bubble opens up and all this other time passes here and then whoop, you're back in your body. Kimmy Cat, Magical Mondays did not happen this week. There were a couple of I had something that was pre-scheduled, and then Lady Shadow had something that was pre-scheduled, so we didn't do it. But next Monday, we were absolutely doing Magical Mondays. It will be, well, she's been having some Wi-Fi stuff happening. They've been trying to fix her Wi-Fi connection. And so it'll either be YouTube or Facebook. We try to use StreamYard so we can stream on both, but yeah. Cosmic 80s. I discussed with Cosmic 80s before the NDE that he and his son experienced, and I will be interviewing him on my YouTube channel about that. So yes, I'm looking forward to that. Hi, Dolores. So we're very excited for the podcast to be released. One of the big things about the spirit world is there's no ego there. And if you read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, I've said this, I've promoted this book a billion times. You can see I've read it a billion times. It talks about the ego. And essentially, ego's not always what we think it is. The ego isn't just you're stuck up or conceited and you think you're better than everybody else. The ego can be something like gossiping. An example of gossiping being the ego is you are talking trash about somebody to make yourself feel good, even if you don't realize it at the time. Anything that is self-serving in that way that is not honest and honest to the person you're gossiping about, right? Like if I want to tell my sister a story about my friend Bill, but I don't have Bill's permission to tell her that story, I'm not being honest with Bill. I'm talking about him behind his back. That's ego. Complaining is ego. This was hard for me because many of you have heard me say this before. Complaining is my favorite. Like, I'm really, really good at complaining. Anybody else really good at complaining? Let me know in the comments. Complaining is from the ego as well, because when you're complaining, you are taking on, you're sucking away all the positive energy from someone else and giving negative energy. So complaining's of the ego. When we go to spirit, all the ego that we had in our human body and mind is gone, and the soul has no ego. So when we hear spiritual leaders talk about ego death, um, that's getting as close to your soul as you can, because anything of the ego, anybody trying to control another person in any way is ego, and we shouldn't do that. So I will be on Linda G again on July 16th at 3 p.m. Eastern. That's the scheduled time. That is what we are planning to do. So you will see that popping up as well. I have posted about it on social media a couple times. Kimmy, I have a few inquiries about peeps in comas. My partner was after a motorcycle accident. He did suffer a TBI and, of course, memory loss. Memory portion affected. Often wondered if he would have had an NDE. So not everybody remembers their NDEs. The estimates are about 20% of people who have extreme experiences like a coma, or their brain goes offline, or they're underwater for so long. I believe I read that about 20% of people remember their NDEs. So if he had one and he didn't tell you, maybe he just doesn't want to tell you, because sometimes people think it's weird. Ask him if you feel comfortable. Sometimes our partners don't want to tell us things, because they may feel embarrassed, or weird about it. But as open as you are, Kimmy, I can't imagine you'd be afraid to ask about that, because you're pretty open minded. So I'm sure your partner knows that about you. I would ask that. Me personally, I would ask. I might not get an answer, but I would ask. All right. So what else do we got? What else did we get? Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I figured you would ask. I'm so sorry he passed. You probably told me that before. I'm sorry about that. Um, so not only do NDE survivors have this timeless, spaceless awareness with no ego, they also often come back with a shift in worldview. And in the case of Dr. Alexander, he was a very skeptical neurosurgeon. He was a materialist scientist. Trust me, I still work in science to this day, and I have talked to and been around many, 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 many materialist scientists who it does make me sad, because they cannot conceive or conceptualize or let their guard down enough to be open to there's more than this material world. And the interesting thing is, astrophysicists should know better. Now, if you're just a geologist or a biologist and all you're doing is stuff here on Earth, and you're not really completely aware of what's in space and how enormous and unbelievably big it is, I could almost understand skepticism and materialism and that type of scientist. But people who are astrophysicists who are materialists or quantum physicists doesn't make sense because the enormity of the universe is indescribable to you could never conceive of it. I'll just say this. We are one planet in our solar system with one sun. There are 2 to 400 billion stars in our galaxy, at least, all with planets around them. So that's trillions of planets in our galaxy. And there are at least 2 to 4 trillion galaxies in the universe. Now, that's like mind blowing, right? So, for an astrophysicist to be a materialist or a quantum physicist, it doesn't make sense to me. So, knowing that there is so much out there that we don't understand is proof, in my opinion, that we don't know all the answers. What science isn't that old on Earth, a couple hundred years maybe. Modern science, 50, 70, 100 years maybe, depending on where you started at. We know very little about what's really happening. We think we're so smart. We're not. We don't even know how the brain works completely. So skeptics make me crazy. I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, and he was on his podcast with a philosopher of physics. So she's a philosopher, but she specializes in physics. And that was an extremely interesting conversation because Neil deGrasse Tyson's kind of like agnostic atheisty. It was extremely interesting if you're interested. All right. So science meets spirit. So Dr. Alexander's recovery and detailed recall have sparked a global discussion on the nature of consciousness, offering compelling support for the idea that the mind is not produced by the brain. Again, the comment cut off, but is part of the greater universal consciousness, which is what I have been yelling, saying that science proves mediumship is real for a very, very, very long time. I believe in the collective consciousness. I believe in the multiverse theory. I know that there are so many things we don't know, can't explain. We don't even understand how an atom works. An atom, like one atom. We don't understand how it works. There are electrons inside orbiting the nucleus of an atom, and they change and they shift. And in the moment they go from one position to another position. This is absolutely true. This is absolutely scientifically true. This is not woo-woo. I had to take a lot of biology, chemistry, and physics classes for my degrees. When the electron shifts from one orbital, they call them, to the other, it disappears and reappears. And that is a fact. Look it up. But don't make sure you get a real website to look it up on, not some fake junk. So scientists don't understand the smallest things and how an electron disappears and reappears. And it's happening all over your body. Every molecule of air you're breathing, every cell in your body, in your hair, in your fingernails, on this computer screen, there's electrons appearing and disappearing, trillions of them every microsecond. And scientists can't explain it, but yet here we are. Here we are. Vivian said, great point. It's hard enough to get people to understand what's visible. It's even harder to get people to be open to what is not visible. That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. People are so negative about things they don't believe. Belief is a funny thing. Belief and truth are basically opinions. Belief and truth are opinions. Okay. Facts are something you can point to and say, I have this data point, this data point, this data point. A belief in God is essentially an opinion. I'm not saying don't believe in God or do believe in God. I'm saying a belief in God, your truth, that is a belief in God, that God is real, is an opinion. You cannot prove it. You cannot disprove it. It's a belief. It's a truth to you. It is not a scientific fact that you can point to. Now, if there were validating pieces of evidence through a psychic, a medium, a spiritualist that was getting information from some type of collective consciousness or God to predict things that are going to happen with accuracy over time. And I know this has happened, and there are many cases like this. The preponderance of evidence shifts that from belief to fact. It's like evidence in a court case. Sometimes there's not the I'm trying not to get banned here. When somebody gets pew-pewed, and the pew-pew is no longer available, somebody gets rid of it, they dump it somewhere in the bottom of the lake or something. You've heard stories or seen shows. There's no pew-pew, but the person is deceased, and then there's a video of the criminal dumping an object shaped like a pew-pew in a lake, but they can't find it, right? So the preponderance of evidence is that that person, an eyewitness saw them with the deceased. There's a video of him dumping the pew-pew in a lake. The preponderance, and they had a fight earlier, right? So that's a lot of evidence that will lead to a fact. Same thing with mediumship, same thing with psychic, same thing with remote viewing. All of those things are, you build enough of a case, you can't deny it anymore. And that's actually how I started my mediumship journey. I was not even ever considering being a medium. It wasn't on my radar. It wasn't on my bucket list. It was nowhere in sight. And it just started happening to me like super strong. I've told the story many times. Things I couldn't deny, things that were unbelievable, things that were like, how did I know that? This, I was seeing people in my mind's eye and the color of their clothes and what they were wearing, and they were giving me messages to give to their loved ones, and other objects I was seeing that were really present with them when they pass, like unusual things. And I'm going to do a scientific experiment on myself, and I'm going to become trained and go to mediumship school, and that's what I did. And I've been a professional medium ever since. So, all right. Any questions? Just know that in the podcast there are lots of facts in the podcast. Lots of information. You may, if you're interested in the scientific part of it, there are a lot of, and actually I have several of the books here that Dr. Alexander mentioned. He mentions a lot of authors and a lot of books and a lot of scientists and spiritual gurus who collaborate on things. So you may have to rewind it to listen to the names. Any questions about that? Don't forget, I'll be on Linda G next week, a week from today, actually. Any questions? All right. Yeah, Vivian, it is hard to get people. All right, I'm going to shuffle these. It might be loud. Okay. So, and I'm going to pull a collective card. I have been posting videos and making videos for meditations. We need to raise the vibration of this world as much as possible. There's so much negativity and so many bad things going on in the news right now. We definitely need to do our due diligence and quiet our minds, turn off the news as much as possible, and raise the vibration. I have creators who I follow that report the news, and I only can watch a couple minutes a day. I literally cannot take any more bad news. We have to raise the vibration. We have to love each other and stop falling victim to the extreme fear and negativity. We do feel helpless. There are only so many things we can do. The people in charge are overwhelming us with extreme negativity. They're overwhelming us with one disaster after another. They're overwhelming us with taking away what's been put in place to help people and then saying, oh, we don't know why it happened. It wasn't my fault, and blaming someone else. They're taking people off the street with no due process and putting them in prison, like maybe worse than prison, like inhumane places. There's a lot of negativity going on, and we individually cannot force a governor or a president or a senator to do the right thing. We just can't. We can't force them to. We voted. There's not another election till next year. So right now, what we can do is do what we can in our own small orbit. And that's why I've been doing the meditations, to help raise the vibration. That's why I try to keep my live streams and my videos as positive as possible. Do not want to fall into the negativity trap. I could get millions of views and be monetized in a heartbeat if I went the negative route. But I cannot do it. It doesn't feel right for me. It doesn't sit right with me. It's just not where I want to go. I could go there. Could go there easy. Trust me, I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm upset, but it's important that we lift the vibration as much as we can, individually and collectively, as much as we can. Dolores, are you going to ask a question, honey? You may ask a question. I was also on, and I posted this on my socials as well, and there's a copy of it here on YouTube, the TikTok famous podcast with Meredith Willits. That was her podcast, officially was released yesterday, but there's also a copy of it in my on my YouTube channel. So let's see. I'm gonna just one second, Dolores. So any questions about that? And please, please, please go forward with love in anything you do. That doesn't mean let people cross your boundaries. That doesn't mean let people mistreat you. It means go forward with love. Okay. Hi, Sunshine. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Sunshine said she just found the channel. I appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe, everyone, and share my channel with a friend. If you have a friend who's looking to raise their vibration, please lead them my way. All right. I'm going to pull a collective card. Sorry about the noise. I don't have a pad on my desk yet. I forgot. One collective card. Oh, what's it going to be? Discovery. Oh, discovery. All right, this is beautiful. Look at the big sun up there. Discover the treasures within, follow your passion. So this is so appropriate for what is going on right now. In order to step away from the constant negativity that we are receiving everywhere we look. Do something creative. Do something different. Go to a botanical garden. Go to a park. Go paint a picture. Um, my husband and I make puzzles. I bought a ping pong table for us to play ping pong, just so we can get off the screens, get away from the constant negativity that we're seeing on social media and the news. And even when I turn on my TV, the like main screen sometimes goes, it's a fire stick, so it'll go directly to some terrible news report. And I'm like, I don't want to see that. Why is that automatically on my TV? So discover the treasures within, follow your passion. So do something you're passionate about to take your mind off of all of this garbage that's going on. Okay, that's a good card for everybody. Thank you, Sunshine. Yay, I'm so glad you're here. Dolores said, my coworker this morning told me that she's so disappointed in the US, and I calm her down. Good, saying, don't lose hope. It will be okay. Because I feel at the end of the day, we will be okay. So what what I say next might sound crazy. Okay. Everything that is happening, I have a couple of opinions, a few versions of how I feel about all of this, aside from devastation and insanity. Um, the pendulum always swings from one side to the next in politics, right? What we're experiencing now is so extreme, it's almost unbelievable that it's happening. So many horrible things are happening in front of people, and we're all like, what's happening? But I really think, and I might get a phone call from somebody after I say this, but I think it's being allowed to happen because there are ways to not allow this to happen. There are people in charge with higher security clearance and more power than the executive branch. That's a fact. And so, what the mystery to me is, why is it being allowed? What nefarious things are happening behind the scenes that we are not aware of that is allowing this? Because there's no reason for someone this extreme and this dysfunctional. There's no positive reason for that. So, whatever reason there is for him being in that position, again, it's unbelievable, but something's behind it. That's my opinion. Now, as I said earlier, who cares about opinions, right? My opinion is meaningless, but it is odd because there are ways to eradicate that issue. And it's being allowed. Also, he, there's a term limit, right? And there's a time limit. But the larger issue is underneath that. All of the people who are blindly following, blindly agreeing with, blindly supporting, it's cruelty, the cruelty, people who are loving the cruelty. That is what is the larger problem, because he will eventually be gone. There's no doubt about that. One way or the other, he'll be gone. But the fact that so many millions, 70 something million people voted for cruelty and hate and bigotry and misogyny and taking rights away from women, and then women who are being forced to have children that they can't afford or they don't want or they're not ready for, they're not old enough. women who are graped. Hi, Sunshine. Hi, Marby. Um, Women who are graped and not allowed to terminate. Um, and then, young girls who get pregnant, whether willingly or unwillingly, but have no education, no way to get an education, no way to feed a child. Sister Joan Chittister, who is a Catholic nun, she said, if what you want, a Catholic nun, okay, historically pro-life, if what you want is a child born but not a child fed, not a child educated, not a child housed, not a child loved, not a child cared for, on and on and on, then we need to have a new conversation about what pro-life is. Because if you just want a baby born, but you don't want to feed them, house them, educate their mother or them, that's not pro-life. That's pro-birth. It means you don't care what happens after they're born. Obviously, look what happens in schools with the pew-pews. That's just going on and on and on. It's okay. It's fine, right? We're in the upside down. But it has to shift back. It will shift back. It will. Kimmy, Spirit, I believe we need this darkness and we signed up for being here at this time. Yes. I hate everything that I see, but I refuse to be pulled down by the low, low vibes. Yes, 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 yes. Absolutely. I agree with that, Kimmy. Okay. Any other? Okay, I was going to Dolores. I'm going to pull a card for you from your mom. I'm also a motherless daughter. My mom, I have her picture right here next to me, passed away in 1986 when I was 15 years old. She suddenly passed away at my feet in my bedroom, actually. Ooh. Okay. A message for Dolores from her mom. Oh, well, that popped right out. Oh, from your mom. Look at the butterflies. It says joy. Joy. And I've been getting this message from loved ones in spirit a lot lately. Joy is the dance of the soul. Enjoy every moment. Our loved ones in spirit don't want us to just be mournful forever. They don't want us to just be miserable because they're not here physically. They want us to experience as much joy as we possibly can. So that is for you, Dolores, from your mom. Experience joy. She wants you to experience joy. All right. Everyone, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this live stream. Don't forget, you'll see posted here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Facebook, everywhere. You'll see the Dr. Eben Alexander podcast on Friday. You'll get sick of seeing me post about it, but I'm super excited about it. Thank you, everyone. Sending love. I will be on Linda G on Wednesday. Mwah. Love and peace to everyone. Raise that vibration. Raise that vibration. I'll see you Monday for sure. Bye.